We're here in the motorcycle section of my garage, and honored here today to have 5 of the most famous and fastest motorcycles in the world, including the fastest motorcycle in the world. This is Chris Carr. Chris, how are you?
Hi, Jay.
Chris is a gentleman who drove this bike at what, 350 what?
350.884.
Wow, it's that .884 that kills you.
Yeah, you can't leave that out.
And this is the rest of your team, Dennis Manning. Dennis, how are you? John Jans.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, now explain your role in it, guys.
Well, I've held the land speed record before. I had it in 1970 with Cal Rayborn. Lost it, and the quest was to get it back.
And what was it then? What was the record then?
265 miles an hour.
Wow, that's quite a jump to 350. Isn't it?
And it was 245 when we got the record, so that was a big thing.
And this is wheel-driven piston motors, no jets, no...
Motorcycle,
Right.
wheel-driven.
Right.
Yeah, and so the quest for getting the record back has resulted in me having 5 of the fastest 11 motorcycles ever.
Wow.
And this makes the 6th. And we decided to build our own motor,
Right.
our own chassis, our own everything to really make a quantum jump. And that's what it's going to take to do it.
Okay, before we get into this bike, the world's fastest, let's look at some of the earlier stuff you bought. I remember this bike when I was a kid, only because it was so odd in this sort of early sort of primitive form of streamlining. Joe Petrellia, right? Isn't that correct?
Joe Petrelli rode the
Wow.
bike. Oddly enough, when he got the record, it didn't look like this.
Yeah.
The bike shook. It had a handling problem, so they took the tail and all the pieces off of it, and he went 137 miles an hour in 1936 down the Daytona beach with it.
In the sand.
Joe Petrelli won every national for 2 years in
Right.
a row. And when the association went to AMA, Joe was awarded the AMA #1 card, which is kind of slick. He was also one of the crewmen in the Spruce Goose when
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
when Howard Hughes did his thing.
These kind of bars always look so, I mean, just there's something period about this. It's like fighting like this, you know, when fighters would come out. I mean, I'm not quite sure what the advantage was to having this kind of bar other than just down low instead of, but boy, 137 on this is pretty brave. And it's a Harley knuckle. What's the displacement on it? Is it
61 inches,
Six,
I believe.
is it, it's kept at the stock 61
I
inches?
believe so,
Okay.
yes.
I noticed, of course, twin carburetors. That was not something that was available on a production bike. I remember this bike when I was a kid. I was 20 years old. This is 1970, right? Talk us through this one.
This motorcycle was owned and ridden by Leo Payne, the late Leo Payne. And Leo was a fabulous drag racer. In fact, this motorcycle was at its best at the drags. And he got it in his mind he wanted to go to Bonneville and took a dragster and made a Bonneville bike out of it.
And what did it turn in the
It
quarter
went
mile then?
back there in the, the high 8s,
Wow,
150 some miles an hour.
pretty amazing. Pretty
And
amazing.
he took it to Bonneville, great loads of nitro, put a fairing on it, different tires, the LSR tires made by Goodyear, and went 202 miles an hour in 1970.
Wow. A lot of people don't realize even the slightest twitch or movement would pitch you off at that
It's a
speed.
handling problem.
You know, I had a friend of mine who rode at Bonneville, and he ran about 204 miles an hour, and he was like this, and he had a crink in his hand. He just moved his finger up, and wham, threw him right down. So the guts it takes to ride one of these things is more than I got.
This motorcycle was built as part of a project to get the land speed record for Harley, and it was built in 1983 along with a Streamliner called Tenacious. We wanted to come up with a chassis and transmission design that would help us test for the Streamliner. A couple of unique things about the machine is the front end. I built the front end as a parallelogram front end,
Okay.
and to try to keep a very small frontal area. If you take a real hard look at it, it's made with aerodynamic tubing. The frame is a solid tube,
Right.
with the transmission in the middle of the tube. So unlike many Harleys that have to be taken apart one side or another, this is a cassette transmission that
Gotcha.
could be taken apart.
And how many speed?
4?
It's amazing how thin it is.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Yeah, I mean, the
Sit
widest
at
part
two.
is really the cases, isn't it? Well, this one's built for comfort. You got a little bit of padding here. You can
The
relax.
motorcycle went 239 miles an hour.
Man, 239.
239. I built the bike in 1969 when I was 23 years old. And the motorbike later on became the world's fastest bike with Cal Rayborn riding it.
Wow.
And it was featured in the movie On Any Sunday.
Yeah. Okay, that's where I've seen it. Yeah. Well, you've been around a long time. I've driven fast in a couple of cars, and 180 is fast, and 200 seems like twice as fast as 180. So I can't imagine what 350. I mean, did you do a series of runs to kind of ease into it?
Yeah, we went out on 3 separate occasions for 2 or 3 days at a time, leading up to setting the record earlier that summer. I did about 15 runs in the bike without the motor even running, just getting used to getting it off the tow rope, because we have to tow it up to speed. The hardest part about that bike was going from 0 to 60, because it's designed to go fast.
I was looking for a shape that didn't have to go up, didn't have to go down, it was very neutral. And I was watching a program on television about coho salmon. And here was a shape in a substance that's 8 times as dense as air. And I mean, this guy was taking nothing to go through the water. Okay?
Wow.
So I designed it more or less after the fish. So it has a low coefficient of drag.
Wow, there you go. Well, you know what's interesting? When the Stanleys set their land speed record in 1906, if you look at the famous Stanley, they went to a canoe company, and they put 2 canoes, one on top of the other, because that's how they studied aerodynamics. They didn't have wind tunnels, they put stuff in water. Right. So they put 2 canoes, one on top of the other, and built the boiler inside it.
Chris is literally swimming through air at the rate of 550 foot per second.
Wow. You're traveling almost 200 miles an hour. Sometimes your wheels are spinning and
You are spinning at Bonneville. And the other problem is you're at 4,200 feet, so horsepower is hard to come by too.
Can we take a look at the motor? Wow. Wow, pretty good. That's a great looking motor.
180 cubic inches, makes 500 horsepower. Normally aspirated made 425.
Okay, and your, what's this, little alternator you have here?
Alternator. Oh. The motorbike eats electricity, has electric fuel pump, has electronic fuel injection.
How many valves?
4 valve per cylinder.
4 valve per cylinder, okay.
This is the fuel tank.
Right.
Oil tank, radiator. We found that we can bring air in and expel air and have a net gain, okay, by heating up the air. Fuel pump, oil pump, and on the other side of it, water pump, double overhead cam, alternator. This is a steam evacuation. Ignition's here, plenum chamber, turbocharger.
Yeah.
Rising rate suspension on the rear.
And what size chain is that?
It's a 530 chain.
It's a 530 chain.
Jay, you could lift this building with a 530 chain if you don't yank it.
Right.
By running an O-ring chain, we can keep the lubrication in the chain. But to do that, we water cool the chain, and that's what this is. We
water cool the chain?
We spray water on the chain to actually cool the O-ring and the lubrication in the chain. This is the parachute holder.
Yeah.
And the swing arm is actually mounted to the rear as well to keep it from going sideways in the chassis.
You know, you got to build this motor for production. That's a great looking motor.
We've been told that. Aerodynamics is everything with one of these, and especially in the tail. Okay? So we have the tail, when the parachute comes out, the tail literally falls off. It shears off this pin and pulls the starter chute with it. That's been out at 350 miles an hour numerous times. Well, it's light, it just floats in the air and comes down.
That's pretty amazing.
The parachute comes out. We have another one here. Another part of this tail is the exhaust comes out. There's air around the exhaust. It's being pumped through the motor compartment. And this exhaust actually, because of the heat, lengthens about 1 inch.
Wow.
And then the air coming by siphons out all the air out of the engine compartment. And if you ever see a picture of this, there is evaporation coming out the back. Looks like it's jet powered.
Well, very cool. Do you guys have a website with pictures of this going up?
BUB.com, BUB.com.
Wow, okay. Chris, let me ask, you have an 11-year-old son, right?
Yeah,
well, he
and
must
a
think,
9-year-old.
They must think you're the coolest dad in the world.
Well, they were real excited to know that I was going to try and set a record that would put me in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Now, how about your wife? She couldn't have been too thrilled with this whole idea.
Well, she looked at me pretty strange when I asked her for permission.
Yeah.
You can actually steer the motorcycle one-handed if you needed to. We have about 10 degrees of steering angle.
Okay.
That's how I kind of just do this to get it going early on, and then the faster we go, the less input it actually takes.
It becomes like a gyroscope. It just
Correct.
keeps you up. Okay.
So if we do get a crosswind, however, you do have to kind of counter into the wind.
And this is your tachometer?
I'll have a tachometer that runs up
And what is this rev to? I mean, when you're in...
8,500 RPMs,
And how many speeds?
4 speed.
Just 4 speeds, really.
The top
But
of first gear is 180. The top of second gear is about 265.
Oh, well, that'll
The top
explain.
of third gear is a little over 300 miles an hour.
Okay. Is there any more in there? Or are you running flat out at Redline at 350? Now, Dennis, you have that smirk on your face. There's more there.
Everyone who ever goes to Bonneville, have ever been to Bonneville, will always come back and tell you can go faster.
Wow, look at that front end. And you make your own wheels too, as well, eh?
These controls here, these are my rocket launchers. Well, they bring the skids up and down. So I bring them up as we get going, and then I get down to about 70 miles an hour. I'll deploy them down to help me come to a stop.
Sure.
This torpedo button here is for my high-speed parachute that I can put out at any speed. This one here is for the main parachute. And this one's the oh crap chute. That's in
Right.
case those two don't work.
I see. Well, my other question is, when you're doing this, do you go through periods of intense vibration, smooths out, vibration, smooths out? I mean, there are periods at like maybe 150, it starts to wobble, you pick up speed, it straightens out, or is it smooth going all the way? Or?
Most of the vibration that you feel will be the surface, the salt. The year we set the record, the salt was pretty smooth. And the thing that was eerie to me was that the faster that we went, the quieter it got because we were escaping sound and with the exhaust note going out the back of the bike. So that was the eerie part. You know, we talked about, you know, what's it feel like? Well, in here enclosed, you don't feel the speed because you're not feeling all the air, but you're seeing it visually, and that was the eerie part of it.
Wow.
Is that you're seeing how fast you're going, but you're not actually.
I mean, you outrunning your eyesight almost? You know what I'm saying?
I'm looking about. I can only see 2 miles ahead of me when I'm on the salt.
So you can only see 10 seconds or so ahead of you.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so mad because I bought this book when it came out. Now I'm getting a free one. If I just waited, I would have had a free one. But here's the story right here. It's the world's fastest motorcycle. The day the Bonneville salt stood still. It's available at a DVD also. Available at fine bookstores everywhere, as they say.
Yes.
All right, but great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay.
Dennis,
Thank you, Jay.
John, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, this is pretty cool, huh?